Wisconsin, they held the Ducks to one touchdown in the first half. It was 7-0 at the half.
7-0 at halftime. It took a 99-yard touchdown drive to get that 7 points, too.
It did. It was a bizarre game because the start of this one, you saw the weather, at least on TV, and I'm like, oh, my God. They're going to get good weather for this game? How is that possible?
Looked glorious at the start.
And then about the middle to beginning-ish point of the second quarter, you can kind of see it was starting to get a little darker and gloomy, and you could start to see the rain. And then the second half, it was just... Monsoon rain, wind blowing.
Ironically,
they
played a lot better when the monsoon rain came. It brought the best out of them.
Well, so... This is interesting because they won 21-7. They didn't come close to covering the number, and it was a pretty ugly game.
Yeah, the Wisconsin touchdown was a bit of a miracle, too. He threw it directly into the wind, and it was like 10 yards underthrown, and the guy adjusted. It was double covered, and if that wind isn't there, it's probably picked off.
The underthrow is the most underrated play in football, either for pass interference purposes or the DB's not looking, so the receiver goes under him and comes back and catches the football.
You are correct.
But I'm going to be honest with you here, Andrew. I did not have on my weekend slate rewatching Oregon-Wisconsin because in watching it, I'm like, I'm going to have to come back and rewatch this first half. Is there something I missed? Because it just was odd to me.
Yes.
I thought Wisconsin came out. They played really tough. They played good. It also looked like they had the play call sheet because even in weird formations or standard run formations, it didn't matter. Turnover on downs, punt, punt, punt. And it just, you watching this Wisconsin defense, which isn't the worst, but...
No, they're fine defensively.
You're watching this and you're like, do they know the play being called? Because it felt like they did. Almost every other run play felt like it was a 5-yard loss for Oregon. It just was the most bizarre start.
They had minus 16 rushing yards at the end of the first quarter, I want to say. Minus 13, somewhere in there at the end of the first quarter.
I think the great broadcast you highlighted earlier with Tim Brando, I think he noted, I think the fewest amount of yards they had in a quarter was Indiana at 15.
Yeah.
They ended up with like 20.
Oh, they barely topped it.
So
yeah,
they
it took a long completion
won.
to get over it because that wasn't rushing yards in the first quarter. They couldn't run the ball, and there was sack yardage in there too.
Yeah, they were minus rush yards. So it was like till the minute 07 point of the second quarter, they scored their first touchdown.
Yes.
And it was just a really like uncomfortable, what is going on here first half, I thought, for Oregon.
Should also be noted, too, like that touchdown drive that they had, it took them, they scored with 2 minutes to go in the first half. That drive, I want to say, took 7.5 minutes of game clock
Yeah, they took a lot
of
time off.
They just possessed it the entire second quarter and then went 99 yards and scored. So they took the ball over at the 1 yard line with like 9 minutes left and then scored with 2 minutes to go. Ultimately in the first half. There's a lot to unpack here. So I think there's 3 different angles you can go down, and I am a firm believer in all 3 of them. And there seems to be a bit of a contentious point right now amongst Oregon fans, a lot of fighting amongst ourselves, if you will, about play calling or backup quarterbacks or this team sucks or this team's great.
Here, right?
What's the problem? Right? When you play like that, there's going to be a lot of worrying that happens. 3 different things that I felt coming out of the game, and I think they're all true. Number 1 is Oregon just has at times this year really struggled to execute for whatever reason. Your guess is as good as mine. We'll go to the start of their offensive game on Saturday. They get the onside kick to open the game up. Mm-hmm. You're like, hey, look at that. There's Big Balls Dan. That's a funny way to start in a game you're probably going to win in blowout fashion. They take a sack on 4th down on that drive and they don't score any points. First down, they run it for 6 yards. You're like, all right, fine start, whatever. Second down, they call a play-action throwback screen to Kenyon Sadiq. What did Kenyon Sadiq do on that play? Just drop the ball. Just dropped it. Now, if he catches it, is he going for 40 yards? No, but he probably picks up the first down. Just a drop. Mm-hmm. Kenyon Sadiq's one of the best tight ends in the country. Why did he drop that pass? I don't know, but he dropped the pass. Dante Moore on 4th down on that drive I went back and watched that play probably 20 times, had 3 open receivers, and just didn't throw it. Why didn't he throw it? I don't know. He just held on to the ball. That was not a sack on the offensive line. You had a play later on one of the other drives where Kenyon Sadiq got beat across his face by a defensive lineman to one of those tackles for loss that you're talking about. There was a play that they gave up a sack. Isaiah World did it left tackle.
He wasn't ready for the
snap. He was like 2 seconds after the ball got snapped.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Speaking of Cheeks on the start there.
What are we doing? Like, just get off the ball. So, like, there's just a weird level of execution that it sometimes comes and goes with this team. So, it's incredibly fair to criticize them for that, and I don't think it's just as simple as some fans are saying of where's the play calling, why is the play call. Nobody complained about play calling when they had 750 yards of offense and scored 9 straight touchdowns against Rutgers last week. And when they struggle, it's like, well, Will Stein sucks. It's like, I didn't love every play call. I don't love every play call, and you're not going to of every offensive coordinator. There's also a base level of execution that needs to happen on the field. That's not the problem of the offense. It's not his fault Kenyon Sadiq didn't catch the ball. Mm-hmm. It's not his fault Isaiah World was 2 seconds late off of the ball on the snap and gave up a sack. It's like, that's not the problem of the offensive coordinator. So it is incredibly fair to criticize all of that. I also would like to point to people who did not go to the game or were not in Eugene.
Yes.
I have been going to games for a very long time. We've been doing the pregame show for 8 years. I was a student down there. I went to games after and between the time of being a student and before the pregame show started. I've been to too many Duck games to count. I can remember a lot of games where it was wet. I can remember a lot of games where it rained and you're just kind of miserable and uncomfortable. Maybe Duck fans can help me because all of them eventually kind of blend together. I can never remember a game in which it was that windy. I am not kidding you when I tell you we were doing the pregame show. We had 20-pound sandbags on our tent prior to the game. And it almost blew away into the street a dozen times. Cooley, our big boss, Kurt Ludwig, and Sam Tung stopped by to say hi. They ended up having to stay at our pregame site for like 20 minutes just to hold the tent down. If you want to go watch the pregame show on YouTube, you can. For the last hour of the show, Anthony, Dusty, and I are literally just standing there holding it down because it's going to blow away.
Yeah.
There were tents blowing out in the parking lot of tailgates. Yeah. There was a porta potty that got blown over. I've never...
Was anybody in it?
I hope not. For the love of God, that'll ruin your day. Good luck driving home after that.
Imagine being in the porta potty that tilts over, and then you go watch your team play like that.
Now I'm blue. This sucks. So, like, I think there was an idea going into the game, knowing the conditions and how bad it was. And this is where I think Tim Brando sucks at his job, but I also thought Saturday he was especially bad because they never talked about it. They didn't highlight how bad the conditions were in the first half because, like you, for people who turned it on, you're like, hey, it looks like it's nice. I thought it was supposed to rain. The wind is howling 40 miles an hour in certain directions. You're not throwing the ball down the field in those conditions.
Yeah, in the broadcast, they certainly didn't, in the beginning at least, they did not highlight the wind. Now, I didn't know it was windy up here because we also had at a soccer game.
Just blowing all over the place.
Parents had a tent thing literally roll and blow away on another field, and we had to chase it so it didn't hit children.
That's how it was in Eugene. So now imagine trying to throw the ball 20 yards down the field.
They didn't say that at all.
There is a video that you can go find. Jeff Schwartz, who does these all-22 film breakdowns. There was a play when Oregon scored their first touchdown. It was a play-action boot for Dante Moore where he rolls right. He's trying to throw back to DeCorian Moore in the back of the end zone. And I'm not kidding you. It's the end zone camera where you see him throw the ball. And when you're watching it on TV, it looks like, why did he throw that 5 yards behind DeCorian Moore and 7 yards over his head? That was weird. And you go watch the all-22 feed, and the ball legitimately moved like 15 yards right to left. He threw it 5 yards in front of DeCorian Moore, and it ended up 10 yards behind him by the time the ball got there. So I also think there needs to be a deep breath taken where you mentioned the Lanning comments, and we'll get to some of the audio.
Yep.
I think he came into this game saying Wisconsin's not going to score. Now, ironically, they did end up scoring, but it was a broken play that led to it. Yeah. Garbage time. It's going to be 40 miles. Like, just run the ball, throw some screens, and get the hell out of here. It's going to be nasty weather. Just survive in advance mode with weather like that.
I think two things can be true. I think it's totally fair to wonder things about the offense because for every, maybe Rutgers game they have other moments where you're like, something seems a little off. And I don't know what to equate that with. To your point of like anybody's guess is as good as anybody else's, you can say it's play calling. Did I like a 2 or 3 man lineup on the offensive line, some weird formation where you end up throwing a screen and it was blown up?
Did anybody complain about that last week when they ran that formation in the middle of a 3-play drive and went 75 yards in 3 plays?
Well, so no, but like nobody has a problem when it works. But people have a problem when your offense is already looking clunky and then it looks like you're getting a little cutesy. And look, I'm not saying it's right. I don't know what the issue is. I also think it's totally fair to say, based on listening to Lanning, and I heard this in the postgame, and I was a little surprised at first. And then you find out what it was. And I think it's one of those things. First of all, Lanning doesn't care about covering the spread. Remember, he famously didn't want What's-His-Nuts to scoop and score at Texas Tech, and then he did, and he made a joke about the point spread. He doesn't care about point spreads, right? What does Dan Lanning want to do?
Just win the game.
Win the game. When it was 21-0, that game was over.
Yes, when it was 14-0, the game was over.
When it was 7-0, it was over.
It was probably over.
They might have the worst quarterback I've ever seen be a quarterback.
They had one completion, I want to say, halfway through the fourth quarter. They had completed one pass on the game.
His one deep pass was an accident.
Yes.
It was a mistake, and it worked, and okay, they scored a touchdown. But they're terrible. They have no run game. I thought they have no pass game. Their run game was okay.
Game was fine.
I thought the run game had some good plays. But for the most part, I think your point, like, I think Lanning and company just being in what they were in were like, okay, Dante's not either reading the guys who are open or his throws are being blown left or right. Let's lean on the run game. They did again. They had over 200 yards on the ground.
After not minus 16 in the first quarter, they ended the game with over 200 rushing yards.
And Davison and Whittington were great again. We don't know who the best back is on this team because it seems like every 2 or 3 weeks it changes. But right now it's Whittington and Davison more so than anybody else. And so I think for all the questions we have, and we can get to some of the offensive stuff, I think Dan Lanning gets out of that and goes, hey, we played in crap and we won going away. And I don't care about if it was a 30-point win or a 14-point win.
Right.
A dub is a dub.